What you will need to do is trace your pattern, because that just makes it easier for you to see underneath what you have and you haven't managed to transfer. Now you can, the point of decorative painting is, that's what it is. You can decorate anything with these techniques and patterns that you learn. Today I'm going to be recycling a box that had something in from my daughter. I try and recycle wherever I can, but there's nothing wrong with making them look prettier. If you're going to be packaging something up, that can now become a gift box. So you will need to position your pattern where you want it, and you will need either, depending on the surface you're using. So if you're using a light coloured surface, the black graphite, and if you're using a dark coloured surface, you can get white carbon paper, which is chalk based, so that makes it easier to rub off and get rid of any marks that you don't want. The white actually works on this, so I'm going to use that. And you simply, once you've positioned it, if you don't want it to move, you can use, again, it will depend on your surface, a very low tack tape, which will just, you only need it in one or two places, just so that it holds it in place for you to lift up and see where you've been. I am using a stylus to trace this through. You could use the point of a pencil or a pen, and you just trace what's there. Now, I'm just going to put little marks where these are. The brush strokes will cover them. And I'm going to work systematically so that hopefully I don't forget any element of it. I'm just going to put and rather than you watching all of this in real time, I'm hoping that I will be able to edit this video to take out the bits that might be boring. Now, with circles, so that you get them in a circle, I tend to do a dotted line rather than trying to get an exact circle. And hopefully, well, I'll lift this up afterwards, you will be able to see that those little dashes, rather not dots, do come out to give you your shape. Canal Roses have particular colours, the traditional ones, and I'm going to be doing traditional ones today. And the traditional colours are a yellow rose, a red rose, and a white rose. And traditionally, the base coat for those, for the red one, it's either a deep sort of reddy, browny red, or a brown colour. You want a dark base. Now, if your carbon is smaller than your pattern, you just move it along. The white roses have a pink base, and the yellow rose has an orange base. Now you can mix those colours. Today I'm going to be using the colours straight on, just seeing if you can see that that white has come out quite well. Forgive, it needs to refocus when I move anything. The brushes we're going to be using is a number 4 round brush, because we're going to be doing comma strokes. We're going to be using a liner brush, and I'm going to be using a stylus tool, which has a small and a large end. For my palette, there are various things you can use, but today I'm going to be using this Artisan and it's a disposable palette, and it's good for a variety of wet media. So basically, it's a glossy sheet. You could use a greaseproof paper, and you could use the glossy side of a greaseproof paper. The colours I'm going to be using, I'm not mixing today. This particular orange is called Spiced Pumpkin. I'm going to be using Baby Pink, and I am going to be using Raw Umber for the base. And to base the leaves, I'm going to be using Hauser Light Green. Deco Art Americana are my paints of choice. They also do one, I said that my paints of choice. I also use Traditions and some of their premium acrylics. But the flow of the Americanas are really lovely. It's a really good consistency. So always shake your bottle well. We're going to start with basing, and we're going to base all of the leaves, and we're going to base the roses. Now I'm going to do 2 red roses, 1 white one, and 1 yellow one. So I'm going to need all of these colours out. You will need to wet your brush, then take the excess water out by dabbing it on some kitchen roll. Let's start with the roses. Always give your paints a good shake. And put little often out rather than great big puddles of it. So that's a very small amount. How you load your brush is I always say you're painting the paint into your bristles. You're making sure by turning your brush, keep turning your brush and filling it. You want your bristles to be full. You want the brush to be well loaded, but you don't want it so full that it leaves marks. What you also want to try and avoid is getting the paint into the furrow, this metal bit here. If you get it into the furrow and it dries, it will splay your bristles, and you won't get a really nice bounce back on this brush. So, comma strokes. I'm using a comma stroke to fill in the circles as well. Finding my starting point, pressure, and releasing the pressure as I come round, which brings me back to the brush sitting on its point. Same the other way. And that gives me a good circle. And then filling in. You can, of course, base, but it's always good practice to use the strokes that you are learning or have just learnt. The more you do these strokes, the better they become. So I've used very little paint there. Base that. Rinsing my brush. And now I'm going to do the orange one. I'm actually recording this in Zoom because I want to be able to see what you see to make sure you're getting everything. So hopefully I'll be able to edit this. So pressure, release the pressure as you come around. Hopefully I'll be able to edit this and take out any bits that perhaps are not really necessary. And then filling in. These may, on some surfaces, need 2 coats. If you do something, if you're working on a surface where you actually do need 2 coats to base anything, Wait until the first coat has dried, because otherwise you will lift the paint back off with acrylics. And the excess water out. And going for the red roses. I will be covering palettes. I will be doing a video on palettes at some point, because you will always put too much paint out, and if you're going to be painting quite regularly by using a wet palette, you save your paints. They become usable. Now with this box thing, if you could see that there was where there are little creases in it, needed to go back over to fill the creases. So different surfaces are going to need a little bit of different attention from you. Pressure on the brush and releasing the pressure as I lift that brush up. My hand isn't moving. This movement is being done purely by moving my fingers and keeping my hand steady, which helps me to not shake. And straight down just to fill in. Oops. There. So that's the base coat of the roses. Now the leaves in How's a light green. The leaves also traditionally will have a base coat. They will have a slight hint of use different colours. I've seen the hint being done in red, in a brown, in an orange. I'm going to use a ready coloured brown called burnt sienna, which I will show you when we get to it. So loading the brush the same way, painting the paint into my bristles, and then the leaves are comma strokes as well, too. So we start at the base, we put pressure on, and as we come up, we take the pressure off, which gives us our point. And then we just simply do that on the other side, fill in. Now these may need 2 coats. With each of the leaves, 2 comma strokes, and then 1 in the middle to take to do the filling in. There are 7 leaves for you to do here. And there are different ways of doing these leaves. Some are rounded, some are pointed like this. But as you start to get the feel for these strokes, you'll develop your own style. I'm doing pointy ones today. Yeah. Pressure, release the pressure as you come up to the point. Pressure, release the pressure, and your brush naturally comes back to that point. On these end ones, I have just done a slight of wayward hair in my bristles there. And that's all your leaves based. There they are. I'm going to dry those. Hopefully, because Zoom is supposed to be really clever, you won't hear this. If when I listen to the recording you do hear it, I will remove the sound from this recording and overspeak it. I'm going to second the roses, apart from the brown, aren't too bad. They're not all going to need a second coat, but these leaves do. So I'm just going to put a second coat in to make them more opaque. Depending on what type of surface you're using, I often move the surface where I'm more comfortable. So if you find you feel caggy-handed at any point, move your piece to a position that is easier for you to paint. All of the leaves. Little groove paint there, but I'm not going to worry about it where my brush was a little too full. As I say, if needed, second coat any of the areas that you need to. And these brown ones do need a second coat. Sorry, brown ones. They are a brown base, but these will be the red roses. You don't want to overstroke, as I say, because you will just bring the paint off while it's wet. So pressure, release the pressure to bring you back to your point. Back round the other way. And then get in. Now you might see there's a little splurge there. Again, I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to be covering that with the overstrokes. Now that they're based, I'm going to be using lamp black, the centers in. And I'm actually going to use a little red, sorry, the brownie red. So lamp black and the dotting tool. I need those brown ones to dry a little bit more first. And for the orange and the pink one, I'm actually going to use burnt sienna. I'm going to be very naughty. I'm going to just dip into my lid because I don't need any more of this at the moment. So a little dip, and my rose is facing that way. So the center, and I just swirl it. Do not put too much pressure on, otherwise you'll end up with grooves. The orange one is facing out this way. So again, you can have these either in little circles, little dots, or swirl it around a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. They will change every time, or they do for me. Lamp black, I'm dipping in. This one faces out, and this one faces out the other way. Oh, that's helpful sometimes when you get your sticky bits in the paint. A lump that's not going to play ball and come out, so let's lift that out with my brush. Again, that one's a little bit bigger, but I'm not going to worry about it. We've got lots more strokes to do on these. Now with the leaves, I'm going to use you can use anything you like, but I'm going to use an old filbert brush. I'm going to wet it. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the burnt sienna. I like this sort of orange tinge to it. And I'm almost going to have this brush dry. So I'm loading a little bit of the paint into it. I don't want a great big orange streak on these leaves. So on my kitchen roll, I'm going to take the paint off, or quite a bit of it. I may have taken too much off, but I can go back over it to add. What I don't want to do is put a splodge on there and not be able to take it away. And I'm just giving these just that little hint of colour at the bottom. Need to be a lot. Again, taking the paint off. Following, that one's a bit thicker, but it doesn't matter. Following the shape of the leaf. Sometimes I've done this hint of colour with a liner brush and made them very, very wispy. And I say this is an old filbert because you might be able to see that it's splaying, even though I haven't got much paint on, it's leaving that sort of see-through. That's the base colour for your leaves. Then you will have seen there are some daisies on this pattern. These here, again, traditional. They're going to have a base of blue. They will then have a center of ochre yellow is the color I'm using, which will then have a dot of red before we go to painting the actual leaves. So baby blue or whatever blue you happen to have. Again, shaking the paint. Now, when I'm doing larger daisies, I would use my brush. Because these are quite small, and actually, as I've been rubbing my hand over the pattern, I'm finding some of them a little bit more hard to see. I'm actually going to use my stylus. And I'm dipping I'm not swirling, I'm dipping straight into that puddle of paint and straight out. And to go where the dot of the daisy is, and then I'm going to dip again to add a little bit more paint, and I'm just going to swirl it to get to the size I want. And here. I missed a leaf off, so that's interesting. I should have a leaf there. It doesn't matter that some of these things will be covered over with the other leaves. I mean, if you were to look in your garden, some of your flowers crisscross each other anyway, so that's not a problem. Here. And I'm not really putting any pressure on this stylus at all. I'm just allowing it to touch the puddle of the paint to help me move it around. So each leaf has a daisy underneath. Now these will end up crossing over, but that's fine. So I do need to put I do need to put my other, sorry, I do need to put my other leaf in. Get that in. And dry and be second coated. So this on here. This isn't a terribly intricate pattern, but when you are dealing with a very intricate pattern, that's why it's good to take your tracing down and you can lift it to make sure you haven't missed anything. So the next thing we're going to do is also going to be the leaves. And we're going to add the not stems, I don't really know what term is. Coated, and then we can start on the other side while that dries. The dry brush bit is, by the time we're actually putting the paint on, it is practically dry. For speed, I'm actually going to put this in. And it's still wet. To get away with it. The base of the daisies, because I've used the stylus and it's a little bit thicker, that will take longer to dry, or you can use a little hairdryer or heat tool as I've been doing. But next we're going to put in these strokes onto the leaves. And we're going to be doing that using ochre, yellow ochre, and your liner brush. Again, a little out. You load your liner brush in exactly the same way as you do your round brush. And we start at the top. Pressure, release the pressure as you pull. And then the same, 3 on each side. And that is your leaf. So there's a few of those to do. Sometimes I've had 3 on each side, and sometimes I only manage 2 if I end up putting too much pressure on my brush. You always start in the middle and then just make each side even, whether it's 2 or 3 extras. It won't go wrong. And the liner brush actually holds more paint than you think. So you shouldn't need to reload. I'm reloading for each leaf. Get each leaf out of one. Oops. It says, and of course the minute I say that, it doesn't want to play. If you're right, well, whether you're right or left-handed, always work away from yourself. I did that in 2 halves, but normally I would work from top to bottom, simply because trying to do it the other way, you risk catching your paint with your arm or your hand and smudging it. So now they're done, back to the stylus. This time we're using the yellow ochre, dipping in, and this time I'm simply putting a dot in the middle of the blue. And you want to do each of your daisies. I'm going to turn my work so that I don't smudge it. I told you to work from top to bottom, I didn't. Now, the dots will take longer to dry. I am going to do that with a heat tool so that we can move on to the roses. There we go. Okay. I hadn't realised I'd left the camera on my face, and I'm sure you don't need to see my stuff. So I've just noticed and turned it off. What we're doing is painting. I hope so far it's going okay. So I'm now going to do the white rose, which is the one with the pink base. And I'm using warm white. Bit of this out. Load, we're back to your number 4 round brush. Load it well. Now, I do my Canal Roses slightly differently. I'm going to do the white and the orange one as you would. So we start at the top, pressure on for our comma stroke, and we're raising it almost, releasing that pressure almost immediately as we bring it round to a point. And then we do that the other way around. And then we're almost just jigsawing these comma strokes. So slightly outside of the rose and round to the tail. We will then go back to this side, pressure, release the pressure as you come round. Going to do that until this rose is complete. Pressure, release the pressure. I will go over this daisy, but that's fine. Pressure, release the pressure as you come round. Pressure, release the pressure. And this one will just be small to just fill it in. That is your white rose. The orange rose is done with yellow ochre. Sorry, it's not an orange rose, it's a yellow rose with an orange base. So rinse and reload your brush, and we'll do that again. Starting at the top, pressure, releasing the pressure as you come round. Pressure, release the pressure as you come round. That one wasn't brilliant. But don't worry, because we've put more on. So if they don't come out quite right, or quite how you would like them, my apologies, I've just noticed that these little lights here are my blinds. Outside pressure. Let the brush naturally come to a point on its own. You're not trying to force this comma shape. Pressure, release the pressure, and your brush will come to its own natural point. A bit more paint out as you need. Pressure, release the pressure. Pressure, release the pressure. Pressure, release. This one's a little one. Pressure and release. We aren't quite done yet. The only one that doesn't have an overstroke with the liner brush is the white one. And on that example, I've only got red and yellow, so I will Find a picture of a traditional one. So now on to the red roses. I'm using cherry red. You could use true red or hunter red. What I'm looking for is a nice bright. True red is quite bright. Let me just show you. True red is a nice bright red, but it can occasionally need two coats. It's slightly transparent, so I'm going to use cherry red today. Again, if you have some paints but not these particular colours, just use what you have. Certainly if this is a practice or you're just wanting to try it out, so as long as you've got an orange base and a yellow petal, a pink base and a white petal, and a sort of browny burgundy base for your red, and just use whatever shade you like. I'm just going to show you a slightly different way that I have found I like myself. It was just one way I do them. And that's starting just outside, pressure, but this time I'm coming all the way, not right down to the bottom, but a good way. You'll see this better when I lift it up. Again, back on the other side, and I'm coming around short. And these ones don't interlock as such. They can look quite effective. I've just said to you that the red, the true red, can be quite transparent, but actually this cherry red is. Put one in there. I'm going to this one, and I'm going to do that the other way round. So I'm going to start on this side and bring it quite a ways down, but not quite to the bottom. I'm going to put all of the right-hand side strokes in. Going over the yellow one, but I'm not bothered, as I say. You get that on this side, back up to sort of hold its center, the black center, and just bringing little one. That is almost the red done. Now, I am going to double coat this because they're not, the red isn't playing ball for me, and it's not as opaque as I wanted it to be. So I am actually giving these a second coat, even though they're going to be overcoated. Hark at me, overstroked. Pressure, release the pressure for it to come to its natural point. Let the brush do the work. I will take photographs. In fact, I'm going to take a photograph so that I can actually include those on your document. And then rinse out your brush. Now the overstrokes for the different colours. Yellow is usually white, and we're going back to a liner brush. for this, so I need to wet it again, get the excess moisture out, and I'm going to load with white. And this is still a comma stroke. Pressure, release the pressure. Pressure, release the pressure as you pull. Release the pressure as you pull. Pressure, release. Pressure, release. And white on the yellow. And I would also, now you can either use the dotting tool and put 3 little marks. I rather like doing these centres by using my liner brush. A little bit of pressure and almost straight off. And giving it a little stamen. I would also use white for the centre on the white rose, but you could perhaps just do 3. They don't all have to be the same. The red rose overstrokes I've done in yellow. I have seen them in white, so again, that's your choice. But the way I learnt with a canal artist was yellow. So again, pressure, release your pressure. And you're going to overstroke each of the petals on your red roses. And it really, really brings them to life. Pressure, release the pressure. You may have noticed the kettle on the website in the footer. That's one of my favourite pieces. It seemed that I was lucky. I had one of those days. We get them occasionally, don't we? And they're wonderful. One of these days where everything went right. And that's your red rose. I like the yellow in the middle of my red roses. So again, with my liner brush, a little bit of pressure. I'm not actually, I just said pressure. Honestly, if my brain works sometimes, that'd be dangerous. I'm not putting too much pressure on. I'm hardly touching so that those lines are nice and thin. Okay. So then the last thing we need to do are the daisies. I'm not going to bore you with doing every one, but what we will do is we want our little red dot. So I'm just dipping into the red. Keep losing my position of the camera with the small end of my stylus. I'm putting that little red dot on all of the daisies. and wipe the stylus off. I'm just going to do these top ones here, and then I'm going to show you the fillers, which are just comma strokes, which just finish it off for you. And then I'm going to stop the recording so that you're not bored, and I will take a photograph of the completed box top. And yes, I hope you really enjoy. The daisies are white. I'm going to use my liner brush for these. When you're doing larger ones, you could use your round brush. For the daisies, all I'm going to do is touch. So let's get that. Let's get that there. Holding my brush like a pencil, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to put one stroke there. I'm coming back to do it on the other side. I'm really doing north, you know, your northeast, southwest. Touch that. And then it makes it easier to even up by just going in between, turning so that I don't mess up. Again, if you've got space, go in between again. Get in between just by not putting as much pressure on when your brush hits the surface. If you've lost some of your red, it can still be seen, but if you've lost some, wait for that to dry and just do it again. Just go over it again. So, daisies, north, south, east, and I do need to turn that one. And I'm just touching it down, touching it down. Look, nice petal shapes. Are a little thicker than others. Again, if you go on to look at some of the folk art online, the canal art, they're not all exact. This one, I'm going to go over the red rose, only going in where I can. But this one is under the white rose rather than the daisy being on top. So there are your daisies. I will go on to finish these others and take a photograph, as I say. Now I just want to show you your filler strokes. Just this one. So your filler strokes, you can pick any colour. What I'd like to show you, I'm going to use my liner brush And I'm going to use green and white because I want to show you something called tipping. And I'm going to do a couple at the top with my number 4 round brush. So I'm loading my brush with the green, making sure I'm fully loaded because I want this to be a really nice, I want to get 2 or 3 comma strokes out of this. So nicely loaded. And just the tip of this, I'm going to just touch into the white. I'm then going to just tap it very gently until I start seeing the green come through. Don't know if you can see that, but I've just tapped the tip until the green comes through. Well, I've marked where some of these filler strokes are. You comma stroke, pressure, and then as you bring that stroke down, release the pressure until it comes to a natural point. And then hopefully you can see how that white has fed through the stroke and it looks really pretty. So where your filler strokes are, that one's slightly smaller. Loading again, dipping in the white and tapping gently until I see the green come through. And then a smaller one again. So you can put these filler strokes wherever you like. You can follow the guide if you wish, but you can just put them wherever you like. So another one there. I might just get a little bit of white coming through there. And again, on this side, but going the other way. Pressure. Release the pressure as you bring it to its natural point. That one wasn't brilliant. Pressure, release the pressure, and then that one's a little bit smaller. And that is your design. We have one here. So you could pick any color within the design. You could pick any color for these fillers. And just let me show you the same thing with the liner brush. Little colours in there with the liner brush and you get that lovely, lovely, delicate thin line. And there we go. So I will finish that off and take a photograph so that you're not bored watching me do all that. Do get in touch if you have any questions, but I really hope you enjoy this pattern and have a go at putting it on other things, make it larger, make it smaller. And yeah, I just hope you thoroughly enjoy it. Okay, take care. Just one final thing. So that's the finished item now. Not doing great at judging where this camera is sitting. Is to finish off with a couple of little filler dots. And I'm going to use yellow. I'm just going to do those in little clusters of, whoops, 3. Here and there, you could use, again, just pick a colour from this colour scheme. So either your yellow or red or the white. I will do a few white ones just to show you. And do them in odd numbers. So if you're doing a cluster of 3, do 3 or 5. Odd numbers is always good with things like that. And the white can look really lovely. To get the same size dot, you need to dip into your paint each time. So you're going to dip and dot. But if you'd like full of frilly, it can look frilly depending on what you're doing. You can dip into your paint and just here and there dot in a slight curve until the paint runs out. And go in opposite directions. And I'm not on there. And then coming up on this side. And just one at the top here. I have to put another one in somewhere because I've an even number. And there we have it.